Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate. Why does the BJP keep disrupting Parliament, and how credible is the case they have against Home Minister Chidambaram? Those are the two twin issues I shall raise today with the leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha, former Law Minister Arun Jaitley. Mr. Jaitley, let me start with a simple question. Why is disrupting Parliament the first and often the only way the BJP chooses to protest against the government?
You see, it's not a fair accusation. Ordinarily, Parliament must always function. At times, you disrupt or disturb when a discussion is not forthcoming, or when you are not being allowed to raise an issue, or a government response is not forthcoming. That's only as a rare exception it should be done. I admit it's happening a bit too frequently. It should not. But then look at the response of the government. One, the whole of the last winter session was wasted. Now, the government accepted after the session everything that we were demanding. But if the session, we had not pressurized the government through this tactic, you would have found a situation where the telecom minister may have continued, the case may not have been made, the JPC would not have been formed.
But look at the last 10 days. You've done it over FDI and retail, you did it over inflation, you did it over black money, and now you're doing it over Mr. Chidambaram. Practically every day you have a new reason to do it.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear on facts. As far as FDI is concerned, the government took an executive decision. We wanted to censure that decision in Parliament. We moved a motion, which was a motion under a adjournment provision, which is a voting provision. Allies of the government were not with the government. So the government could not afford a vote. As a result of which, till they managed their allies, they could not afford to have the session go on. So every time we'll raise the adjournment issue in the morning, you'd have no response from the government and the House would get adjourned.
Except for the fact the government's position, which many agree with, is that an adjournment motion in the first place wasn't necessary. After all, this is an executive decision. It's legitimately within the domain of the government to take.
Absolutely
why
correct.
then have an adjournment motion? Have a motion without a vote.
Absolutely correct. To decide FDI in retail is within the executive domain. Equally, censuring that decision is within the Parliament's domain. What the government forgets is the Parliament has an important role. The Parliament is entitled to censure that decision. The Parliament will censure it only under a voting provision and not under a provision where it is only talked out.
So you're going to pursue this matter even at the cost of Parliament not functioning? Leave aside the
Well, the Parliament not functioning is a responsibility in this case lies entirely with the government, for the simple reason that the government didn't have its allies in place. The government could not afford a vote, so they allowed the crisis to linger on till they suspended the decision.
Let's for a moment focus on your boycott of Mr. Chidambaram. When George Fernandes in 2003 was boycotted by the Congress party, your parliamentary spokesman went on record to call it blackmailing and, in addition, bullying. Your party said that this was unprecedented in the history of democracy. Why then today are you adopting the same low tactics yourself?
Well, the Congress party created a precedent.
It's are you going to follow every bad example?
And mind you, in the case of George Fernandes, as subsequent facts, now 8 years have passed since then, or 9 years have passed since then, you don't even have a statable case against him. You don't even have an FIR against him.
That's another matter. Why follow a bad example?
It's not a bad example. In this case, there's a lot of explanation that the government and the then finance minister has to give. I'm not going into the details of what the accusations are, what the charges are. You have the CBI which gets up in court and says, well, we are not going to investigate the matter, that we feel there is nothing in it. Now, here is a case where you won't make a statement on his role in Parliament. You won't have the CBI investigating the matter. What is the opposition supposed to do? Be a mute spectator in this issue?
No, boycott in the sense of socially boycott, not talk to, not address questions to, not even listen to his answers. But why disrupt Parliament? Let Parliament function.
Well, the Parliament...
You don't want to hear him, walk out, but let Parliament function.
The boycott of the Home Minister and Parliament functioning can coexist. It's only when he has to speak that we raise an objection. As a result of it,
for this last week, in fact, the boycott and disruptioning have been coterminous.
No, that's a separate issue. That is a separate issue. That has nothing to do with the issue of the boycott. The issue of the boycott is on the 2G issues.
All right, let's come to the 2G. I'll then come to what you call the separate issue, your demand for his resignation over the VLS SP Gupta case. First, the 2G issue. You've gone on record yourself personally to say that when Mr. Chidambaram changed his position from auction to first come, first serve on the 2001 figure basis, that this was a breach of Section 13(1) of the Prevention of Corruption Act. But have you forgotten the fact that the trial judge has actually ruled that policy and price are not in dispute, they're not an issue? That undermines your case.
I can discuss the whole case. All that I am saying is that here is a case where the telecom minister is being charged for a policy which caused huge loss to the exchequer. The trial judge subsequently holds a prima facie charge against Mr. Raja on that very policy which is framed as a result of which the loss to the government has been caused.
Forgive me, this is where you're wrong. He's not been charged with policy matters. He's been charged entirely with implementation of policy. And I'm going to quote the trial judge. He says the policy is not in dispute.
If you read that 400 to 500 page order, if you read that 400 to 500 page order, the framing of the policy where spectrum in 2008 is being sold at 2001 prices is not an issue on which he's exonerated him. That's a part of the accusation in the charge sheet, and that's a part of the accusation which is going to be lead to a trial against him.
Let me finish reading what the trial court ruled. The prosecution is about subversion of the policy by the accused persons.
You are right.
The policy is not in dispute in the instant case. So you're trying to bring in Mr. Chidambaram on a policy issue which is ruled out.
After saying so, then the trial judge, in the course of that 400-500 page judgment, makes detailed observations on the cheap allocation of spectrum in 2008 and the 2001 prices.
So you think there's a backdoor entry by which you can bring in Mr. Chidambaram?
No, I am not saying there's a backdoor entry. Here was backdoor entry as far as the 2G licenses were concerned. So that apart, the whole issue is, does the government owe an explanation to the people that an accusation for which Mr. Raja is being charged, if there is, the cabinet had authorized 2 ministers to decide it, the second minister has something to explain.
No, Mr. Jaitley,
or is it that he has nothing to explain in this matter?
An explanation is owed. It's owed by your party to the people for holding up Parliament on an issue that
I'm giving you the explanation.
There's not even fun. Let me
well, I am giving you the explanation.
No, let me finish my thing. The reason why an explanation is due from your party is because your entire case on the 2G matter against Mr. Chidambaram hinges upon the fact that you doubt his intentions. Yet you have no proof for doing so. There could be, let me finish. There could be many good reasons why he changed his position and agreed with Mr. Raja. Why are you doubting his intentions? You have no proof and no reason to do so.
Read the 15th January 2008 note. In the 15th January 2008 note, he says, the best methodology of allocation of spectrum is the auction. But in this case, it having already been allotted, the matter may be put to a closure.
And that's a good reason. Why is it not a good reason?
Why do you say that the loss having been caused, the service has not started, the allocation has been made 4 days ago?
No, just a moment.
The finance minister, please allow me to complete. The finance minister is the protector of the revenue of this country. How can he say some wrong has been done 4 days ago, it should be closed?
Because for the simple reason it wasn't the government's intention in the first place to maximize revenue. They were there to increase teledensity. Kapil Sibal has formally said so. And the most important thing, if I can finish, is that teledensity as a result went up from 300 million to 800 million. Those are good arguments that Mr. Chidambaram can quote.
That argument would have been valid if the licensees themselves had an intention of providing a cheap service. When the licensees inducted foreign partners and they valued it at a much higher value, therefore the eventual service is not going to be a cheap service. It's going to factor in the higher value.
That was not the promoter selling his equity, that was dilution of equity. That is an established way in which startup ventures raise money.
But the value of the same spectrum, of the company which held only the spectrum and a license and nothing else, suddenly changes.
Can I pull out of this argument and say this to you? This is your explanation for demanding Mr. Chidambaram's resignation and boycotting the man. To many people it would seem as if this is something that should be argued in court, not holding up Parliament. Why hold up
most people, it would seem to the contrary. It would seem to be the contrary, because a minister who belonged to the allies is in prison because of the same accusation, and a minister which belongs to the government has not even explained.
Because the minister who is in prison is being charged with fraudulent implementation. You are not talking about fraudulent implementation. I'm
afraid that's an issue on which we can disagree. I don't read that order in a manner as to narrow the allegation against Mr. Raja.
All right, let's then come to the second reason for your boycott, and this time the boycott has in fact translated into disruption of Parliament. You accuse Mr. Chidambaram of improper behavior in what is called the SP Gupta VLS finance case, and as a result you've demanded his resignation. But all he's done is to place in writing a single order saying that the Home Ministry should give no direction. Instead, it should convey the Law Ministry's advice to the Delhi government. What is wrong with that?
Well, may I just say this? In this case, the full facts have still not come out. And therefore...
So then you can't demand his resignation.
Please allow me to explain. There seems to be something much more than what meets the eye. From the documents which are circulating, a huge amount of doubt is being created. And the doubt is, why was the Home Ministry taking so much interest in asking the Delhi police to report the state of the FIR to the Home Ministry? I can't understand why matters relating to an FIR and its withdrawal must reach the Home Ministry in the first instance.
Well,
now, these doubts are being created. A sensible approach for the government would have been that what you are alleging, if that's all that the file says and nothing else comes out of the file, let them place the file on the table of Parliament.
Let me use your own words against you. You use the word "there seems to be." You're talking about doubts, not certainties, not by any means a clear case. Therefore, let me finish.
We're still in the process of debating this because this has not been debated in Parliament.
Precisely. So why then begin by demanding resignation, and why take it further and disrupt Parliament?
But can I get a plausible explanation from the government? Why should a matter relating to an FIR in a particular case reach the Home Ministry in the first instance? Why should the Home Ministry be asking for explanations from the police with regard to the state of the FIR?
There may be a plausible explanation, and it may just be this, that this gentleman, SP Gupta, has been petitioning different ministries and the Delhi government since 2004.
Well,
in 2006, he petitioned Shivraj Patil. Therefore, as a result of multiple petitions, an official in the Home Ministry felt that we need to take some action. Let's try and find out. Let's ascertain the position.
That's a very good explanation you have given. Therefore, would it not be a proper cause for the government on day one when this news item appeared in the Times of India to come up and place the record before the whole country through Parliament?
Well, hang on a second. If the government is dilatory, slow and inefficient in providing what should have been an easy explanation to give, why disrupt Parliament?
I'm afraid Parliament is not going to be a mute museum. When there are issues of public importance and the government owes an explanation, it doesn't come up with it, Parliament will raise it. On day one, if the minister had come and said, I'll make a statement, here is the record, I have not dealt with this matter.
Do you know something?
None of this has happened.
Even your ally Sharad Yadav, the convener of the NDA, has gone on record in the papers today to say that disrupting Parliament and stopping it from working is not the right way to go. Your ally
I am reaffirming that position.
Then why do it?
Well, I am reaffirming that position. Parliament ordinarily must function, it must debate. We try and do our best as far as the debates are concerned, but the government also has a very important role. You don't withhold these issues back from the government. You don't call friendly journalists and tell them, this is my explanation. You go before the Parliament and place the record. None of this has been done.
Rather than disrupt Parliament, could you not have asked a simple question in Parliament of the Home Minister for an explanation and given him a chance to answer? That would have been the sensible thing to do.
That's for the government to decide.
No, hang on a moment.
Why must I suggest to them a course that they must adopt in Parliament?
I'll tell you why the government hasn't chosen to offer an explanation themselves, because they believe there is no explanation to give. And let me tell you why they say it. Because if you look carefully at the Home Ministry's letter to the Delhi government dated the 9th of May 2011, it actually only asks the Delhi government to scrutinize the FIRs with a view to considering whether under Section 321 of the Criminal Procedure Code, the prosecution can be withdrawn. It doesn't call for direction to withdraw the case. Just
well, let me just tell you, if all these explanations were there, what prevents the government from placing them in Parliament? And what prevents them from placing before the Parliament that this case withdrawal, the Home Minister had nothing to do with?
I conceded a moment ago the government is dilatory and silly, but why hold up Parliament? Why
if the government is not giving an explanation, I have a lurking suspicion that no plausible explanation could have been given.
But the point is, you didn't give them a chance. You didn't even ask for it. You disrupted Parliament from the word go.
Well, when the Parliament got disrupted, the very next minute the government and the opposition had an opportunity to speak to the opposition and come out with an explanation.
And you know how, it's not just that you've disrupted Parliament, your colleague Yashwant Sinha has actually gone on record in public to say that Mr. Chidambaram is guilty of a criminal offence. What is the criminal offence?
Well, once the record comes out, only then can the final view on the explanation of this can be given.
So I am not going
to get into the use of adjectives.
So then how is he saying he's guilty of a criminal offence?
Prima facie on the basis of the fact that here is a case in which the ministry seems to be taking an undue interest for some reason.
Just a moment.
And Mr. Karan Thapar will give an explanation, but the government of India doesn't know an explanation
But once again, look at the language you used. You used the word prima facie because you know full well it's not established. Yashwant Sinha didn't say prima facie. I want to see the documents. Yashwant Sinha publicly demanded resignation.
Somebody must see the whole file.
He said he was an aparadhi.
Well, I can tell you, if his perception is on account of the suspicious circumstances that the ministry is taking so much interest, then is it not possible for the government to say, we place all the record before the Parliament to see, well, I have not done it, this happened in the past.
We're going around in circles. I said to you, I concede the government's dilatory and inefficient, but why hold up Parliament?
Well, if the government is inefficient for holding up Parliament, then you may perhaps share a part of the blame with him.
Let's take a break at that point. I want to come back and put to you an explanation why the BJP is disrupting Parliament and why in particular it's doing it through the excuse of boycotting Mr. Chidambaram. That's in a moment's time. See you after the break. Welcome back to Devil's Advocate and an interview with the leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha, former Law Minister Arun Jaitley. Mr. Jaitley, let me put to you an explanation that many people believe why the BJP is boycotting Mr. Chidambaram to the extent of disrupting Parliament. They say it's not really the belief that he's involved in 2G. It's not really that you think he's guilty of involvement wrongly in the SP Gupta VLS finance case. It's because under his charge as Home Minister, intelligence agencies have connected Hindu groups to terror attacks like Malegaon, Mecca Masjid and Samjhauta Express.
Well, there is absolutely no basis in that allegation, and I'll tell you a good reason why there's no basis. Notwithstanding the fact that those investigations were going on, irrespective of the merits of them, whenever it came to Mr. Chidambaram and his stance on the Maoist terror,
you praised him. You personally did.
I defended him. Why did I defend him? Even when his party was not standing by him, because we agreed with his line. And he thereafter somewhat diluted his line, but that apart. And even then these cases and their investigations were going on. The fact of the matter is...
But the findings hadn't happened. Asima Nan's evidence hadn't come on record. This was all earlier.
Some charge sheets had been filed, some charge sheets were in the process of investigation. The two have nothing in common. If he comes out strongly against terror, if he takes a correct position on Kashmir, there's no reason why we will not support the government of India and the Home Ministry.
You almost made my point for me. In the days when Mr. Chidambaram was concentrating on Maoist terror and he didn't seem, as you said, to have the support of his party, the BJP was overwhelmingly in support.
No, notwithstanding the fact that these investigations were going on.
The second, in fact, the investigations which you said were going on revealed details and connections to Hindu groups, you changed your position.
Absolutely not. The two had nothing in common. 2G has nothing in common with an allegation that he makes against Asima Nan. 2G and this latest allegation has nothing to do with any of these issues. We will go by every issue on its own merit.
I put it to you that in fact it's not principle that's motivating you, but politics and perhaps even a small desire for revenge.
Absolutely none. I don't think that's part of our priorities. We judge every issue on its own priority and on its own merit, and that's the stand which we are going to take.
In which case, let me put this to you. Clearly, Mr. Chidambaram is not going to resign. Clearly, Mr. Chidambaram is going to stand his ground and there's going to be no formal explanation as you want. So what's going to happen on Monday? Will you continue to disrupt Parliament on this issue?
Well, let's wait till Monday. We'll meet on Monday morning and take a decision.
So are you suggesting there's a possibility that you're now embarrassed by the...
I am not. We are not embarrassed. In fact, we are strengthened by the silence of the government.
But if
and therefore, the issue that we won't place it before Parliament, but we will just show it to friendly journalists. This can't be the way the government of India...
But let me put it like this. At the end of the day, beyond being opponents of the government, you are also, I presume, a responsible party with the interests of the country primarily in your mind.
Absolutely, we are.
Why then allow Parliament to function? Why not let it continue?
Therefore, raising an important issue of an allegation with relation to 2G is an act of a responsible opposition. It's not an act intended to disturb Parliament. Let him come out with explanations, the whole issue will come to an end.
All right, I'll accept for argument's sake that you did the responsible thing. You've held up Parliament, you've made your point. The thing is, you've now made your point. Now, on Monday, let Parliament function. There are more important things than just
we'll take your suggestion into account on Monday morning when we meet and decide what happens on Monday.
Will yours be a lonely voice in your party saying that Parliament functions supported by Sharad Yadav? What about all the other, forgive my word, hotheads in the BJP who want Chidambaram?
Well, we all think alike, we talk alike, and we come to a common conclusion.
So I'm going to take from this a small hint. There's a smile on your face that maybe on Monday morning, after all that's happened and you think you scored your point, Parliament will function.
I hope the government comes out with proper explanations to what has happened.
But the critical thing is, what if the government doesn't? It may not have given an explanation on the floor of the House. Chidambaram has given some sort of explanation to the press. Will that be sufficient?
Well, I think facts need to be verified because there is something more from the kind of facts in this case than what's coming out. And I indicated some of those facts to you.
So there's still doubt about whether Parliament will function. Sometimes you say it might, sometimes you suggest it won't.
Well, we'll only decide on Monday morning.
All right, Mr. Jaitley, a pleasure talking to you.